Hey guys, welcome back to the Cast. I am your host Josh, and I wanted to first of all start with don't forget to like and subscribe to everything. You know how the algorithms work.
Ding.
As you click things in the channel, it spreads the channel, which spreads Jesus around YouTube, and that's our motto here: is YouTube needs more Jesus. But I'm with Father Kerry Wakulich today, and Father, it looks like you may be somewhere in Europe or something.
Um, no, maybe. We call this God's country for a reason.
Oh yeah,
This is the church right next door. This is the wall of the church, and this is our connector Hoftorium over there, second
okay,
floor student center, chandeliers,
that's awesome.
me on this couch. It's our brand new. This was not here when you were here in college.
No, it wasn't, and I didn't even ever step foot in St. John's when I was in college because I was not Catholic. So
What?
yeah, I didn't know anything about it. So I met Lindsay, who did step foot in that place in college, and
Oh yeah.
she was the one that invited me to mass and was like, "Oh, go to Christ the King with me. I'm trying to figure out where I want to go to church." And I was like, "Oh gosh, okay," but I will not become Catholic. I told her that was the first thing I told her, and now I host a Catholic podcast. So yeah,
And you work for St. Philip Neri.
I know, right? And I work for the church. I sold my business to work for the church, and it's been great. It's
Yeah.
so fulfilling. It's so great. And doing fundraising, which is awesome because I think Derek Lissy said it the best. So it's just connecting great people with a great ministry, and it's just fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the mission to share the gospel, and everybody
Yeah.
needs help. I mean, we're 100%, like you all are, 100% fundraising. We,
Yeah.
like St. Philip Neri and the Newman Center at TU and
Hmm.
St. John here in Stillwater. It's 100%. There's no baby baptisms. There's no funerals. There's no
Yeah.
adults. There's
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
me and Father Porter, you, Brett
Yeah.
Akins, and a bunch of kids, a bunch of
Yeah.
college students.
Yeah. And I always remind people too, because I'm like, yeah, in a parish, like the parishioners take care of the parish, like financially, like they support it. But then when you get to University Parish, it's like the students are going to do a little bit, but we count on the community to kind of support the mission. But
Yeah,
well,
when
yeah,
all the college students are away, it's like I was watering the plants this morning out
yeah,
front. I'm mopping
I
up messes.
yeah. My mom actually asked me the other day. She's like, "You're off this summer, right?" I'm like, "No, no, I'm not off. I've got a lot of stuff this summer, but it is very boring. It's more fun when the students are around. I know they're not excited, but I'm like, can the new school year start? Like, let's just go. Let's get this going." But it's been
Yeah.
great. But yeah, so I thought we'd jump in a little bit for people that don't know you, just a little bit about your kind of
Yeah.
story growing up and how you became the pastor of St. John's.
Well, I'm a Tulsa kid, East Tulsa, 31st and 129th. My parents still live over there on the east side of town. My brother and
Hmm.
his wife and my sister lives in Cape Girardeau with her husband and kids.
Hmm.
Actually, my nephew's going to be a junior here at OSU this year, Alex
Oh, nice.
Kulich. So grew up at St. Thomas More, went to Bovers Elementary in East Tulsa. I think your
Okay.
wife and I went to the same grade
Yeah.
school.
Yeah, they just
Because I
talked about it
remember,
recently. Hmm.
oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, yeah,
But obviously years apart, years apart. Her and I grew up in the same part of town in the same
yeah.
neck of the woods, and
Hmm.
then I went to Pius,
Okay.
both school and parish. Then went to Bishop Kelly High School, and then when I was in high school, I worked. I learned how to build airplanes. I was going to a Votech school over in
Oh.
Apache and Yale,
Hmm.
the Tisdale Parkway way up north. And so grew up in
Yeah.
Tulsa, went to school there, and then went off to the Air Force when I was 18 and was planning on not coming back and building airplanes, and ended up going into satellite communications in the Air Force, and then that route when I got out of the Air Force for a couple of years.
Hmm.
Finally went to seminary after enough little old ladies were telling me, plus friends of mine were telling me, you should
Hmm.
be a priest, you should be a priest, you should be. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
So I went to seminary at Conception Abbey.
Hmm.
We have a guy who actually is an alum who's going there now. So we'll have two OSU alums
Yeah.
as monks at Conception Abbey. Nick Bolin, who's from Shawnee, Oklahoma, headed to
Okay.
Conception Abbey. Father Paul Scheller,
Hmm.
who was also one of the kind of top upper echelon monks there.
Hmm.
And then went to Denver for 5 years, did the spirituality year,
Hmm.
5, and then 4 years of theology. Then came back and became the associate pastor with Father Samuel Perez at St. Thomas More in East Tulsa. right down the road from my parents. And then because of a switcherooing of priests, I got moved to TU in the summer of 2011 and was at TU till the summer of 16. And then I came here in the summer of 16. And in October of 16, we started designing this place. And it's been now here for a year and like 3 months. This church, we just had some parishioners of Christ the King.
The Forever Young ministry.
Forever Young. Yeah, they showed up. Actually, one of the ladies that runs it, Kresbach, Yeah. I went to school with Jake Kresbach, one of her siblings. So.
Oh, okay.
So
and I think
I've been
she
here
may
now.
have a Joe Krebsbach as well. I think maybe it was an alumni here. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know. So I've been here now at the Newman Center. Well, no, Newman Center. It's not a Newman Center. It's a full-blown player. It's like St. Philip Neri is. Yeah. I've been here 8 years, and we had to move. Like, it was a full-blown parish here.
Yeah.
And the parishioners here and all the funerals and all the baby baptisms and all the older outside of age 25 weddings all got moved over to St. Francis. So this place is booming. Stillwater is booming. They call it God's country for a reason. So just in the last 10 years, it's $60 million in new Catholic construction in the city of Stillwater.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Which funny,
you're going to hear doors open. There's plumbers moving about in the building.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of the same here. I had yesterday was recording and someone just knocked on the door and I was like, hold on a second. I cut out. But it's casual here. But yeah, that's crazy to think. Because most people think if they don't know Stillwater, Oklahoma, they may just think it's some farm town, and which kind of was. But it's like, it's growing. Even since I've been there, like driving around, we were up there. I was helping my brother's business. We were power washing the baseball stadium. And so we were up there working, and I was just like, this place is getting huge. This is awesome.
A lot of good stuff going on here.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah.
So you're going to hear people walking in the background, but there's like no safe place to work during the summertime because plumbers I was in another room and they were like, the plumbers are going to be in here. I was like,
oh, well, that's okay.
We'll see what happens. There's going to be people walking down the stairs here in a minute, up the stairs. I mean, it's really cool. Like the wall of the church is right here.
We'll just snag them and bring them on. Just see what they're up to.
Who's walking behind right now? I have no idea, but somebody's going to walk over here to this show. And
there
What
we go.
are you looking for?
They're American.
Welcome.
You're going to have to go to the church because I'm currently recording a podcast. Yeah, that's right. They're way over there. Go inside the church. And there's a piano tuner showing it up here in a little bit. I mean,
we hear all sorts of great noises.
Tonight we have a women's concert is practicing. There's a women's choral music group on campus that's going to England and Wales for a couple weeks, and they've been practicing in our church because the church has 5.6 seconds of acoustics. Yeah. And so we even got some people from Juilliard who are coming here. Yeah. And that's when I realized Juilliard, I thought it was a dance studio. It's like school.
One of the best music schools in the program or in the country.
And they wanted to use our church because they saw it in the recordings that that OSU Music is doing.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
And so it went off to Juilliard and someone saw it and they were like, can I record in there? I was like, no, you have to be a college student here at OSU.
Or make a sizable donation.
They even offered to pay and I was like, not interested.
Yeah. Well, fun reminder to Juilliard, when I was there, the trumpet studio, we went and competed in the national trumpet competition and beat Juilliard to win the first national trumpet competition for Oklahoma State. So take it. When we saw they were going to be there, it was like, oh shoot, like this can be tough. So took them down a couple times actually. So anyway, so what do you guys have planned this summer? What are you guys doing like ministry wise? You guys have a lot of students on campus? I know it's a
mixed bag because students are working all day, and then we have events on Sunday night Sunday afternoon we have brunch right after we only have one mass, which is at 10 a.m. And we have brunch immediately after that. And then we play volleyball and the sand volleyball in the evening on Sunday nights. And then Wednesdays we have game nights, so we go borrow a family's pool, and then different events, just haphazard, like stuff booked in, and then not like this weekend we have a concert here in the evening. We're inviting all the students too, and there'll probably be 150 people here from town, families coming in, and also students just showing up. Cool. And it's quiet. Well, Thursdays we have 2 hours of a class on Acts of the Apostles. I'm just basically bringing kids into my studies, like Acts of the Apostles. I'm like, come over and learn with me, and you can learn something too. And they're like taking down notes. I'm taking some classes on atheist philosophers this summer, so I'm studying like Sam Harris and the Cosmic Skeptic, and Nietzsche, Feuerbach, Kant, Jean-Paul Sartre, and just sort of reading them. I'm going to watch the movie The Rope. Oh no, I think it's Rope. It's the Alfred Hitchcock movie that's based on Nietzsche and if you take Nietzsche's philosophy and you extend it out, and you're like, this is what will happen if you follow Nietzsche's philosophy all the way to the end.
Okay.
Alfred Hitchcock, Rope. So
interesting. Okay. I'll also check that out.
Yeah, just stuff like that. And then, kids go home on weekends too. Yeah. And it's just something. Play golf and sports in the morning. And
I lived there a couple summers. It had been probably three summers, and we loved it because it was a ghost town. There's like hardly anybody there. But I know some people are like, this would suck. It'd be just nothing to do. But there's plenty. But
there's bukus.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, and then the Atheist Philosophers we're going to talk about a little bit today. Right? Yeah.
I guess so.
A little bit about what my first thing, like kind of introducing it, was I had this theory, and I don't know if this is true or not. You'll be able to speak more to it. I was actually talking to Carl Broussard, and I said, I love your podcast is called Catholic Answers, because mine would be called Catholic Questions. I always to remind people I'm not the philosophy and theology background person, but I'm someone who wants to go and find out. But I had this theory that atheism isn't as popular as it used to be. Like, as far as like, if someone wanted to evangelize, I feel like you would run into more Protestants or people that just have a problem with Catholic faith or something rather than atheism. But that may be only my experience. Just I have not myself ran into someone who's like, I just don't even believe that there is a God.
So I've been in college ministry now. I said this the other day, and it made me sound old. And plus I got these giant glasses that make my eyes look really big so you can see my wrinkles underneath my eyes. I've been working in college campus ministry 13 years. Wow. 13, that's a long time to be in doing one thing. And so every 4 years we get a different demographic.
Yeah.
So right now the demographic is kids born after 2000. Like, there's no one right now, maybe there's a couple people, but they got to be older in college that were born before 1999. This doesn't exist. It's 2024, so these kids are like 2002, 3, 4. I'm doing weddings for kids that were born in 2001. I'm like, so you have a different demographic coming in, and the age of like the kids who are like that never knew not having an iPad or an iPhone or internet in their home. Those days are gone.
Yeah.
So we're getting this group that's coming in both in the intellectual world of the university system that is becoming hostile to Christianity, and the cancel culture is on the boom. Like, like if your professor says like in maybe you're taking a class on heat transfer. Okay, so and you're in a mechanical engineering student, you're taking a class on heat transfer, and your professor says, well, Christians don't believe in science. And you like, if you raise your hand, they're going to cancel you. It's like no, like it's like the idea of the kind of conversation of debate without punishment is not available in the university systems anymore. I mean, and that's the fear that's wedged in there of, even amongst, the fascists. If you ever played the game Secret Hitler, the fascist job is to shut everything down, to make you stop talking. So the dialogue, even between people who don't believe the same thing, is quietly going away. And then, so you have the generation now of college students who are afraid to confront somebody because they grew up during COVID tide. And during COVID tide, when you're in, ninth grade, some of these kids are, because now it's 4 years later, they were freshmen in high school or sophomores in high school, that they lost those friendships or just even those relationships or ability to have conversations with people. So now we're getting, and also the churches were closed down. And that's another story. I mean, it's like, we think it was like, oh my gosh, this was terrible for 4 years. Imagine Western Europe, World War I, World War II. There were churches that were destroyed for 40 years. Your local parish church may be gone for 40 years. So they're dealing with this difference. But what we're trying to, I think there were a couple of things. Have you read The Religion of the Day? The Religion of the Day is the sequel to Christendom to Apostolic Mission by Monsignor Shea, who's the president of St. Mary's University.
Yeah. And we're going through that one right now.
Winona? I don't remember where it is.
Yeah.
But his writings are very interesting because he's presenting, again, the religion of the day of what is going on in our culture right now that is sort of the new ruler. And if you look at the cover of it, it's music, but it's also this woman, and I think she's on the altar of the Notre Dame in Paris, and she has her foot on the cross. So if you look at it very carefully, the foot on the cross.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and so there's this dismissive culture that's going on that, and the thought is that Christians are just a bunch of dum-dums. Yeah, it's like, who built the university system? We did. Who came up with the idea of the Big Bang Theory? We did. Who came up with the idea that things were spinning around in orbits around the sun? We did. Who came up with genetics? We did. And so now there's this oh, you don't believe in science. And the answer to the churches, from the churches, yes, we very much believe in science because we are scientific people as well as philosophers and theologians and scientists and engineers. And so that's sort of the dismissiveness. The second part to it is, I don't want to insult anybody out there, but I'm just going to say it.
Just go for it.
Franz Jägerstätter, Blessed Franz Jägerstätter of Austria. He was martyred by the Nazis for not signing the oath of Hitler, not swearing his allegiance to the Third Reich. And he had this line, and he said, now mind you, he had like a third or fourth grade education. He said, people who don't read and don't learn and don't study are like soccer balls on a field being kicked around by little kids. That's what happens, I think, in our modern culture, is that these us Christians are being kicked around by these atheist philosophers and scientists who are like, oh, Christianity is just a bunch of dummies. When in fact, we have all of this that we can learn, and because of that, we're just doom scrolling on our phones for hours on social media and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, And if we're not forming the thing between our ears and behind our eyeballs, if we're not like growing in knowledge and wisdom and praying, and then atheism and the scientific method and the French Revolution are going to rule the day.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to do. Fascism is going to be like, and puts people down. And so we have to be forming our intellect. Well, it's Fides et Ratio, the great document by John Paul II. says faith and reason. You ready for this? Are the two wings that lift us to heaven. Oh, that was slick.
Is that how he said it?
Yeah, faith and reason are the two wings that lift us to heaven. So, we can't. The Christian West, which seems to be divided by, do you have a really great rock band, and a great light show from everybody else?
Yeah.
They're worried about light shows and rock bands and the message, and totally missing the point of that the orcs are battering down the door at Helm's Deep. They're like they're hitting the gates of Vienna, as it was on September 12th, just beating the gates, and no one's there to defend the truth. Yeah. St. Paul even says, be transformed by the renewal of your minds. Boom, 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 boom. And we're being transformed by doom scroll. If you don't know what doom scroll is, it's when you sit there with your cell phone and you just scroll for hours on end. And you just stare at like cat videos and little smile and like things. It's like,
it's something you don't even realize how long you've been doing it. You're just like, oh my gosh, an hour has passed. I've just been scrolling. I'm honestly guilty of that every now and then. I need to get off social media, honestly. But
there's a benefit to it. There's temperance should reign. So, the excess and the defect is, the excess is we do it for hours on end and literally use up the good years of our life doing that. And the defect is burn it to the ground. It's like, no. There's a middle ground that it's like social media is good. People we can access, we can transmit data, we can evangelize people.
Yeah. I actually had a disagreement one time with the Focus missionary. We were talking about social media. He was just big on everybody should be off of it, which might be true for a whole lot of people, but not everybody should. We shouldn't let it just be a free reign of worldly and evil things. There are people out there like the Matt Frads and the Father Mike Schmitz and the people that are doing great things to evangelize on social media. But then we got to also know our boundaries of like Carlo Broussard told me one time, he's like, evangelization does not happen in the comment section. So don't be overinflated by good comments, but also don't be put down by bad comments. But don't think that you're going to change someone's mind in a comment section. I get a lot of comments where it's typically, I know you kind of mentioned it earlier, but typically where someone will grab something like Catholics believe this, or Catholics worship Mary and their cannibalism with the Eucharist and everything. That's why I don't ever listen to a Catholic priest, or that's why I don't ever listen to a Catholic person. It's just like your logic is very flawed. But we do have to be able to defend it and always be kind of renewing that knowledge. And honestly, as long as we're just continuing to just try to grow closer to Jesus, I feel like we would be ready to combat some of those things. And it'd be okay when you're not. Like if someone asked me, like the cannibalism question, that's kind of a weird one. You won't get often, but if you got that, how do I defend that? Then don't be offended that you weren't able to, but then go find the answer and go figure it out for yourself. Yeah. So so on this atheist philosopher stuff that you're studying, are you studying their philosophies to like understand their philosophy completely so that you can then better rebut it?
I want to hear how they think.
Yeah, it is very interesting.
The thread of their thought is like Patrick Singer. The guy. His message is, I don't want anything to suffer. Sam Harris's new one is original sin is the worst invention by Christianity ever in history. Yeah, there's so people should look them up and do a little reading of the four horsemen of the new atheism. Even like Nietzsche or Jean-Paul Sartre. What is their idea process? How do they think? Sometimes I read them and I listen to them and it's like, one, this is really dark and sad.
Yeah.
Two, if I take this to the length at which they're going to take it, then annihilation. Yeah, I am the perfect version of myself, and I can do whatever I want. There's no moral laws. And so what I'm doing is I'm just taking theirs and I'm listening to their lectures and debates. There's a lot of really great debates online between Christian philosophers and theologians and atheists. And I mean, they sit across from each other and they have a cordial conversation.
Yeah.
Now, how do you say this? I haven't thought this one out very well, so I'm kind of glib, and then it goes from brain to mouth.
Yeah.
And in listening to them, I can hear their line of thinking, empathize with them of what their concern is, see some of the darkness of what is there, and then answer questions. The goal is then to answer questions to college students and to even, help my preaching, because this message from these cultural philosophers is making its way down into the classroom.
Yeah.
And so students are showing up and saying, my professor said this and this and this and this. It's like, is that true, Father? Is that real? The answer is, no, this is the reason why that's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I was wondering too, so you get that, and I'm sure that there's a little bit even more of, do you get people that come starting to question either the Catholic faith or I guess it would be the Catholic faith, but with Protestantism, because some of the stuff you said, about there are no moral laws. It's just you're good, do whatever you want. I kind of see that in Protestantism a little bit of Jesus came, died on the cross for our forgiveness, and he is now given salvation to everyone, and it's almost like everyone's going to heaven, feel good message. That's kind of why I left the Protestant church. I felt like there's got to be more to this. But I don't know if that would be something you guys come across probably often.
Yeah. The number is always skewed, but they say there's something like 30,000 Protestant denominations just in the United States of America.
Yeah.
That is a lot. Now, I don't know if that number is true or not, but here in Stillwater, there's, I think the number was 78. There's 78 different denominations of churches here in the city of Stillwater, and some of them believe dramatically different stuff between Calvinism and Baptists, between Episcopalians and Lutherans. I mean, those are some of the big, delta point differences. And then there's small nuances too. And it depends on where you go and who's the pastor and what they're preaching on. I've been listening to this podcast for 2 years, and I'm terrible with names. Wild at Heart. You ever read the book Wild at Heart?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it. I'm actually guilty of being one of those people that doesn't read enough, and Lindsay's working on it with me. I need to do it more. But
so this is I'll share this tip with you. If it's under 120 pages, I read it. If it's over 120 pages, audio. Either get it from your library, you can get a library card and download them. You can get them from the big circuit of audio books. Audible has a lot. And that's the way, I listen to Lord of the Rings every summer. It's 25 hours. every
Yeah.
summer. Anyway, this back to John Eldredge. John Eldredge
Yeah.
is kind of like a big face in the Protestant world right now. And what's permeating through there? And then I've been listening to Kerry Kerry Newhoff,
Mm-hmm.
who does leadership podcasts and is a big megachurch pastor. And he's
Mm-hmm.
bringing a lot of these people on, and both of them are to talk. And Protestantism, they're having this question
Mm-hmm.
after a lot of these big thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
20 to 30 years later, what do we have? Well, we got praise and worship music. We got small groups.
Mm-hmm.
We got people that are coming once a month or twice a month.
Mm-hmm.
But then our bands and our praise and worship groups have to keep up with this trendiness so that people still come back.
Yeah.
And so they're asking this question 20 to 30 years after, is there something more?
Mm-hmm.
So the most common phrase I've heard in exploring even like what Protestants are doing in their theology and their spirituality and their communal life. Have you ever read, this is the phrases that these guys say to each other, have you ever read Julian of Norwich? Have you ever read the writings of St. Benedict? Oh, you know what? I was reading Anthony of the Desert the other day. So they're starting to pick up all this Catholic spirituality and the Catholic theology
Yeah.
because it's starting to make sense to people. They're like, there's got to be something more than this. There's got to be something more. Why is it we're small faith groups are magnificent. Study of the scriptures, yes, beautiful. But Jesus says, remain in me and I will remain in you and you will bear rich fruit. How do you remain in Jesus? By going to church on Sunday? Yes. By taking, 30 minutes of going on Wednesday? Yes. For reading the scriptures? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But he also says, I will remain in you. Not just the idea of him.
Yeah.
He personally will remain in us. So now there's these questions that are being asked, like, how do I remain in Jesus? How do I remain in his life? And the great saints of John, this guy was reading John of the Cross the other day. I was like, and that has changed since last year. John Eldredge wasn't talking about that last year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of started it started picking up, and you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And some of these people are just, they want to be holy, really, really holy. And they're finding that the tools that the Protestant world has are not supplying them with their ability to grow in holiness.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting too in the Protestant world, kind of piggybacking off that, is that you do see a lot of kind of those worship leaders and even pastors and stuff that are there. And unless they're mega church pastors that are living in some multi-million-dollar mansion, traveling the world and stuff, they tend to be there for 10 years and then they leave. And now I know a couple of the Protestant pastors that were big in my life growing up in high school. One of them's like an insurance salesman now. And the other one does he has his own business. And so they're not even in that world anymore,
Right.
Which I think speaks to something, because if you were called to do that, I don't think God would call you to lead a church for a short amount of time and then now move on and do all this other stuff. Yeah. And it always, to me, it was always so unfulfilling, but I never knew why. I loved it. I would go to Life Church and have a lot of feel good, and it felt awesome. But 3 years into it in college, I was like, there's got to be more to this. I feel like the message is sort of the same each time. It kind of always ends with close your eyes, raise your hand if you were ready to give your life to Jesus. You started to be able to script exactly what was going to be done and said. And so I was like, there's got to be more to this. But we're seeing some Protestant pastors here at St. Philip area. One of them that was on campus, and I won't mention his name or who he was with, just in case. I don't know if I'm supposed to, but worked with Gerald for a long time and actually decided I want to become Catholic, but had to kind of plan some stuff out, and ended up getting kicked out of and like blacklisted from his like ordination and everything. And so he's actually working now with Father Castle in the diocese to figure out what's the next step for him. And so it's beautiful, and he's took a massive step of faith because he saw the truth, like saw like what I'm doing, and I'm leading a church. Then I'm seeing this openness to the Catholic faith because someone was well knowledge and passed it on and was willing to build that relationship with him and sit there. And then Father Porter's talking with the Church of Christ pastor as well, who's like, I think I want to become Catholic. So Father Porter's been meeting with him for a while. It's been awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of great stuff.
Well, if there's one thing that we could, I mean, if you wanted to study one thing this summer to really, I think what I've been hearing, I think the vibe is we have to, as Christians, get the understanding of what is baptism. We can't debate it anymore.
Yeah.
What is baptism and what is original sin? Because Luther's understanding is that you're dung and you got snow on top of you. But then if you actually take that seriously and mine through it, and it's like there's nothing good about you, then you go back to Abraham and say, did Abraham really have the ability to have faith? If we're really piles of dung with snow on top of us, is he totally delusional? Because that's the way the atheists are going. They're like, look at this. There's snow-covered piles of dung. That's the Christian understanding of what human beings are. And that's totally distorted from our Catholic anthropology. I mean, you go through the Catholic anthropology, especially if you read like the Catechism, or I brought this book along. Ludwig Ott, the German theologian. You should maybe your catechism should look like this at some point in time.
Yeah, it definitely should.
Split. And what they're proposing is, the atheist philosophers right now are looking back and saying like, and this is where you see this sort of French Revolution and Jean-Paul Sartre and Nietzsche sneaking into our culture, more of sneaking in, slithering in. It's really diabolical because they're looking back and saying, there's nothing wrong with us. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. That's it's this culture out here. It's everybody around it. So it's each generation. They're building an infrastructure that's doing an injustice to me. And what's her line? Taylor Swift's line, "The problem with the world is me." I think she got that from like Chesterton or something. Like he wrote, it was an article he wrote as like, "The problem with the world is me," and submitted it. So they're looking back and saying like, well, look at Abraham. Look at the savagery of Abraham killing Isaac. But this is why we have to know the scriptures and be able to think about this, because we know that Abraham, although his intellect and his will and his senses and his passions were wounded by the effect of Adam's sin, as St. Paul says in his letter to the Corinthians Romans 5, he says, through the one man's sin, the effect is upon everybody. And it says through one man, Jesus Christ, that same effect of justification and sanctification is upon everybody. So that the effect upon all of the generations of Adam, from Adam, has affected us. St. Thomas says it affects our intellect, our will, our senses, and our passions. They're not destroyed or just poop covered in snow. They're clouded. That the soul and the body are really not unified. So when Abraham hears the voice of God to go up Mount Moriah to sacrifice Isaac, the atheists are saying, that guy's a lunatic. But when you go back to read the story is rather interesting, because it's Isaac doing what? Well, his dad's like 85 years old. And the last time I checked, 85-year-olds don't go on hikes up mountains. My dad's 82 and like, "Dad, let's go." And he's like, my back, my hips, my knees, too much soccer over a lifetime. He's wore out. So the story of Abraham and Isaac, when you go back and read it, it's kind of like Jonah and the whale. When people go back and read it, they're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Jonah's not in the belly of the whale, like smoking and having like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The description of Jonah is that Jonah is dead. Mm-hmm. And when the whale spits him out, people see Jonah dead on the shoreline, and God raises him up. It's the same word in Hebrew that Jesus says to the little woman, little girl, I say to you, little girl, arise. And God says to Jonah, I say to you, arise. So there's this, so back at Abraham and Isaac, it's an 85-year-old going up a mountain with like a 20-year-old. Mm-hmm. And Isaac is carrying Abraham up the mountain. They left the donkey, they went up the mountain, and Isaac is carrying the wood. Well, Abraham's carrying one thing. I think he's carrying the knife for the fire. Isaac's like helping his dad up the mountain because he's an old man. Yeah. He's carrying the wood for the sacrifice. And so when Jews talk about it, about the binding of Isaac, it's Isaac binding himself. It's the sacrifice of Isaac. And so we have to know these things and be able to think through them, because it's not Abraham as a lunatic dad. Mm-hmm. It's Isaac who is listening to the voice of God with his dad. Yeah. That their intellect is not completely wrecked as, what are those guys' named? Zwingli, Calvin, and Luther say. Mm-hmm. Especially Luther, like we're just dung with snow on us. No, our human nature fused with our soul, our anthropology is that we can hear the voice of God. We can engage our will. We can then, our senses are telling us something good. Yeah. We're not just completely just lost, one better than a monkey or dolphin sort of creatures. We are sons and daughters of the Heavenly Father. We are children who hear the voice of God. And as Jesus says, my brothers and sisters are those who listen to the voice of God and do something about it. Yeah. So what that is, that's one of the things that's going on right now, is that we have to grab a hold of that understanding of what is original sin and why we need baptism. Mm-hmm. Because the atheists are just slaughtering Christians. They're like, oh, okay, so where's original sin then? Yeah. Like, explain it to me. Like, tell me scientifically where to find it. Yeah. And so even Sam Harris will say, hey, why does theology and religion, why do they not get the same scrutiny as science? And my response to it is, well, we don't judge poetry or art based on the scientific model. Yeah. We don't judge hairstyles, Sam, or like your athletic ability based on science. Mm-hmm. It's observable. There is this faith that is in there, and in the scientific world, it's like, no, it's got to be judged via the scientific method, which again, Christians were involved in, and we believe in this. Yeah. But we don't base all this stuff on the same way, because thermal waves coming from the sun, gravity, dark matter. Explain to me, well, like, what was his name? Father Georges Lamont, the Big Bang Theory. Like, he didn't come up with the TV show Big Bang Theory, although he would have made a lot of money. Like, his idea of the Big Bang Theory. I mean, he's the guy who invented it. What is the story? It's like Einstein gives him a standing ovation and says, that's the best explanations of the beginnings of the universe I have ever heard. Yeah. Yeah.
I heard an apologist one time, and an atheist was debating him, and he said, you're just afraid of the Big Bang Theory, and I don't know why you're afraid of the Big Bang Theory. And the apologist interrupted him and said, I'm not afraid of the Big Bang Theory, I just know who banged it. And I was like, that's really funny.
That's right. We have to and it's not it's not really hard. I listen to some of these atheist astronomers on different podcasts and stuff like that, and they're insightful. Like,
Yeah.
I never knew the understanding of the Goldilocks belt and how you look for planets. They call it the Goldilocks belt. They look for a sun that produces about the same amount of energy as ours, and then they look for things in the Goldilocks belt. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. Yeah, just right. And they look for things, and they're like, okay, can life be sustained on that planet? And I think us as Christians, why I really like the way some of these Protestants are going, and maybe they're going to put some resurgence back in us too, is that we need to deeply understand not just what's going on out there in the galaxies, but what's going on where the Lord lives. He says, go to your inner room. Just we heard it in the gospel the other day. Go to your inner room, lock the door, and pray to your Father in secret. And your Father who is in secret will hear you. It's like, how many of us take the time to spend with our Father in secret in the depths of our hearts?
Yeah.
Guilty right here. I don't do enough of it. Even though the Lord's like, hey, come away and spend some time with me. And I'm like, oh, but I got too much to do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's me too. I just had Tara Lauderdale on the podcast. And we talked about
OSU grad Tara Lauderdale.
Oh yeah. You should see my lineup like of the last 4 to 6 weeks. So we have like Tara. They're all involved with you at one point because Tara Lauderdale, Dustin Sanford, Moose.
Yes.
Yeah, Moose is on. We talked about youth ministry and college ministry. Who else was there? Well, Father Porter recently. Anyway, and we got some more coming up too. But,
well, we currently have from St. John, I think between the two dioceses, Oklahoma City and Tulsa, 30 people working for the church.
That's awesome.
And then we just had another guy, Christ the King.
Luke Tompkins.
Old Luke. But I reminded the people the other day that we have 3 guys studying to be priests from St. John.
Yeah.
All 3 of them are from other dioceses. We need to produce vocations in our own diocese
Here,
from guys that are just here, young women, young men, priesthood and religious life. We got a lot of holy vocations. Anyway, sorry, back to you.
Well, and back to the kind of what you were just talking about. So would you recommend to students, like, they need to be able to explain kind of the existence of God and like why someone should be interested in the faith all scientifically? Because I've heard people say you've got to be able to explain to someone why they should believe in God without the Bible, without you need to be doing they need to use those too, but like, because you are going to run into atheists that are like, I don't care about that book, put that book away, and I don't believe in that book, and then all of a sudden you're invalid. But I've heard tons of scientific arguments. You always have like the moral argument, which is always great. Doesn't always convince someone. That one for me is good enough. You got like universe is expanding. I love that one. I mean, if the universe is constantly expanding, if you stop and reverse time, it had to have come back to a single point. So that shows that time started at some point. But do you always recommend to your students that they need to be able to do this stuff, or?
Yeah, I recommend they know the scriptures.
Yeah.
I mean, under the argument of the 2 stories of creation, most people don't know there's 2. They think there's 1. And the first story of creation, Dr. Scott Hahn does a really great job of this. As he investigated Genesis 1, it's God creates a space and fills it. I mean, like some of the atheists will argue and say, well, how do you reconcile that on the 4th day there's a sun and on the first day there's there's light? Like, if you really think, and they push them on this, if you really think that the scriptures are absolutely true, how do you get time when you don't have the sun and the moon till the 4th day? How do you do that? How do you reconcile that? Well, and this is like just learning and like praying with the scriptures and reading it and sort of like digging through it yourself, because the Jewish worldview is that the first day is God created light, and then he separated light from darkness. And so the Jewish scholars would say that's the fall right there. The bright angels, the cherubim and seraphim, and then darkness was separated, and the and the will of God was shown to the angels and asked them if they would wanted to participate, and the darkness was separated. What's really cool, and I
Yeah.
didn't think about this till a couple of weeks ago. I was chatting with Father James Brent, who's a Dominican, and we were having breakfast together, and he said, "Isn't it magnificent that Saint Michael?" We were talking about humility. That Saint Michael, who's an archangel, who's at the bottom, defeated Lucifer, who is the top of the angels,
Yeah.
cherubim and seraphims. And he says, how beautiful humility is, that the lowest can defeat the highest.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that explains so much about St. Paul's. He says, Jesus humbled himself to become a slave so that he would raise up. I mean, you got to be the lowest, like sit at the lowest seat of the table. Anyway, so there's this, God creates a space and then fills it. That's what Genesis, the 6 days of creation are. 1, 2, 3. And then God fills those spaces. Like he puts stars in them. He puts fish in the ocean. He peoples the land. So we have to know these things, or understand about like Judaism and slavery in the Bible.
Yeah.
Like Bishop Robert Barron had this line. He said, "Everything in the scriptures is true, but remember, it's a Bible. It's ta Biblia. It's the books. So you have to dig into the books and say, what is this book telling me? And what style of genre, just like the catechism says, what genre is this? And what's the message that God wants to send to us? Because if we don't know these things, then we're going to be like a soccer ball kicked around.
Yeah.
I mean, the question they're asking right now in sort of like the atheistic world is like, show me where original sin is. Like, this original sin is not real. It's phony. And the answer is, bro, look out in the world and you tell me there's not something wrong with Hitler?
Yeah.
I mean, what did they say? Reductionem ad Hitlerum, reduce everything down to Hitler. I mean, Hitler and Stalin. Those two dudes plus World War I is 150 million people dead in a 50-year period. Stalin's like 25 million. And then there's like 100 million just from World War I and the fascists and all those groups and, all throughout Europe. I mean, it's 125, 150 million people dead in just a 50-year period from 1900 to 1950. So knowing these things and becoming learned, because just doom scrolling on your phone, Facebook is not going to teach you how to use your brain. It's actually going to give you early onset young simers, I guess.
Yeah. And I think if we all took the time we scroll, like say, just take your social media, and you went to your screen time and saw how much time you spend scrolling on social media, and you spent that time studying, you'd probably be a scholar in the next year because we spent hours and hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tell people, like, don't take huge chunks, like, and I also say to them, don't wait for Lent to do this. Like, start now with like little bitty pieces. Get, a little bitty book.
Yeah.
Whether it's even a small religious book like Charles de Foucault in North Africa, or the Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma, or the Catechism, and just just start and read like a little section at a time. One bite at a time, one piece at a time, and it didn't cost me a dime.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day too, like you're saying, atheists are kicking us around like soccer balls. And a lot of the time people don't realize it's like they're the ones coming and saying your thing, what you believe and what the Catholic Church is teaching is false, or what even just Christianity is teaching is false. It's like, well, they're the ones that need to prove why it's false. So it's like, flip it. This is why I learned from owning my own business. People come in all the time. Roe versus Wade got overturned while in my own business. So I had people just come in just like so mad that abortion was illegal now. And I was like, I wish it was. But I couldn't like just come out and say something and take one side because it could affect my business pretty bad. So, but I would just question them. It's like, are you sure that's what it meant? Or like this is why abortion should be legal. It's like, well, and I would just question them. And like, as you would ask them more questions and they would start talking it out, they would almost back themselves into a corner. And then they'd realize like, oh, okay, I guess you're right. Like, I guess that makes sense. But I think if those people that are coming and trying to kick you around, you just question them politely and respectfully, so they'll actually not build up a wall against Jesus and stuff, but
Yeah,
quietly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and then all of a
Yeah,
sudden they start talking it out, and you're like, man, maybe what I believe is kind of crazy.
well, it also gives you an opportunity to hear how another person thinks.
Yeah.
What I love about these debates online, and there's the debate group in England that's doing this, like the Cosmic Skeptic, and who's the Jewish podcaster? I don't even listen to him. He's really brilliant.
Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro. There's a debate between the two of them. And I
Okay.
encourage people to listen to it. And
Yeah.
Robert Barron the same way. What's the guy's name? Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Terrible with names. I'm glad your name is on the bottom, Josh. I looked at you a minute ago and I was like,
Who is this?
Thunder Chicken?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, to be able to listen to another person
Yeah.
and give them the dignity of listening to them, and the debate between presidents, they shut their mics off now
Yeah.
because they interrupt each other. It's like, no, give the other person the opportunity to speak and to think, and then address them.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, I learned a lot from this. I feel like we could go for another hour. I realize why Pints with Aquinas. I understand why Matt Frad will record 3-hour episodes sometimes. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. But any last thoughts, or maybe an advice to someone who is like, okay, I want to be better at evangelization, or better at, if someone was to approach, what's the first step they should take?
One, pray a lot.
Yeah.
Become holy. Become holy. Like unite yourself with the Lord Jesus. Go to Eucharistic adoration. Go to Mass. Pray for wisdom of the Holy Spirit. Maybe take a novena of the Holy Spirit, and pray. Pray. Also, remember that the person you're talking to is a child of the Heavenly Father too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So become holy. Ask the Holy Spirit for wisdom. Remember that Jesus died for this person as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the Lord Jesus wants them in his kingdom too. The next, if people are asking you questions, dive into that. When I'm helping people with their sins or something like that, the sacrament confession, I'll say, well, okay, let's not start with don't rob banks anymore, because you're not doing that. Okay.
Yeah.
So start with this little thing.
Yeah.
Don't okay, I'm going to stop robbing banks. Okay, you haven't robbed any banks. So I'm going to stop murdering people. Well, you haven't murdered any people. I'm going to stop being adulterers. Well, you're not married, so you can't violate those. Just pick one thing that you're discussing, or that you think you hear going on in the culture, like I did. I was like, this is going on. Let's do something about it.
Yeah.
And then go that direction. And take a block of time. I learned this from Father Elkin Gonzalez at Christ the King when I lived there. The guy takes an hour and a half or 2 hours every day and studies.
That doesn't surprise me.
He prays, holy dude, celebrates Mass, studies, so to make sure that the people of his parish of Christ the King and Midtown Tulsa are formed, and holy, and the stuff between their ears is not turning to mush.
Yeah. Absolutely. And a little plug for the show. If you guys haven't heard him talk before, he was on the podcast 2 weeks ago. So you guys can go check him out. We talked about receiving the Holy Spirit and just understanding the Holy Spirit. And it was great because, again, that's something that people are going to struggle with. And he was brilliant, which is awesome.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, before we jump into the Saint draft, I just want to thank you for being on. I need to come up to Stillwater again soon, see Brett and you guys. And I think Brett's going to come spend a day in Tulsa soon, too. So
invite me.
Yeah.
Father Porter and I are doing some campus ministry stuff together with Clay.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. And then we got some fun stuff. If you're OSU or TU student watching, which I don't know if I've talked to Brett, this is all really early planning, but we're doing the OSU football team's coming down to whoop TU's football team's butt. Just being honest. I got to be honest. But we're going to have a really fun tailgate beforehand. So, so you guys can come see us out there. But, let's jump into the Saint draft and wrap this thing up. So to remind everyone watching, and then if I need to remind you as well, so we'll take turns drafting just like the NBA draft. Our starting 5 saints. We'll do a 6th man as well. Typically is like a blessed or someone who's not quite a saint yet, and we will just go back and forth, and we'll see if these saints were alive today, they would save the world. And Yeah, and so we'll pick a saint, and there's a short little reason why you pick that saint, make it educational, and then we will go back and forth and then wrap it up. Guest always goes first too, so you get the first pick.
Blessed Franz Jägerstätter.
Are you going with the blessed right off the bat?
Yeah. Blessed Fran Jerad.
Okay.
He's going to be canonized soon, but he's a stud. I mean, he's inspired me. He says, if you're not studying, you're not learning, you're going to be kicked around the soccer field like a little ball by kids. He was guillotined. And there's a movie about his life called it's The Hidden Life. Beautiful movie. You should watch it.
I'm like writing all this stuff down because I'm just going to include it in the description. Hidden Life.
The Hidden Life. Yeah, then the show notes. Oh, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we'll put a description. We'll even put the website to, catholicpokes.com, to your guys' stuff, so whatever's going on there. But all right, so my first pick, I learned about it. It's his feast day today. So I thought he was awesome, very sacrificial person. I love, because I really sit home with these people, but people that were set to inherit, like either like they were royalty and were going to inherit a huge like position or inherit a huge business, but it was St. Aloysius Gonzaga. And I just read a little bit about him today. Such a great person to give up something so big and be not of this world to then serve the poor, serve Jesus. And I believe he was also martyred in the Nazi regime as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So number 2.
Mine is Saint Andre Basset.
Okay. Who's
welcome to the club. Welcome to being Catholic. So it's my great grandmother's first cousin, Saint Andre Basset, the miracle worker of Canada. And I think it's so important to like. I wish he was alive right now. So the miracles of healing that he did in Canada would at least give evidence that God is with us.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so my next one, I don't know much about, but I read this thing saying that Protestants need this saint because it would or maybe it's afraid of this saint because it would disprove a lot. I don't know. But Saint Ignatius of Antioch, I heard he's just one of the best saints for Protestants to convert to Catholicism. And I think that goes with the show, but also it's just something would be needed in today's world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go with Saint Philip Neri.
You're the only one that's ever got him from me. I usually take him with my 5th pick because no one else knows about him usually. Yeah.
I like Saint Philip Neri because he is joyful and he's holy and he would just bring joy to every situation so that you don't look like a Christian who's just like, as Pope Francis says, someone who looks like they eat lemons every day. They're so sad looking.
Yeah. Patron saint of joy. Second Apostle Rome. He's a great saint. I actually got asked in it was a meeting with Julia Rush, and she redid our logo, the new TU Catholic logo, and she was like, "Tell me about Saint Philip Neri, because I don't really know much about him." And me and Father Porter both were. Father Porter was brand new to the position, but I was just like, "Man, I should know more about him." So I've been actually reading a lot about him. I was like, "That guy's awesome. I love that guy." Okay, so this is pick 3. I'd have to go with probably Adeline, my daughter. Her patron saint, which is at least what we gave her when she was born, is Saint Therese of Lisieux. Which is awesome. Doctor of the Church, great. We got another guest on the show behind you.
I'm recording a podcast right now. Sit down, Vic. Vic Schutte, who runs our finance council.
Yeah, he can pick the next saint.
Okay, great. I got one. Nicholas of Myra.
Who is that?
St. Nicholas. You know who St. Nicholas is?
Oh, okay.
Come on, Nicholas of Myra. Nicholas of Myra is a great saint.
Yeah.
Okay, who doesn't want a meme about them every December? I mean, he's got sacks of gold. He rescued girls from being sold, and he gave his inheritance away. And the meme every year is, I got sacks of gold and punches to the face, and I'm all out of sacks of gold. I mean, Arius gets up at the Council of Nicaea and says Jesus is not fully divine, and Nicholas knocks him out. So at least that's the legendary story that goes with it. And so
that's awesome.
Maybe we need I have a lot of zeal, and occasionally I just want to punch somebody right in the face.
Yeah,
I don't. But Vic's over here laughing.
That's awesome. All right. Well, then with my next one, I'm gonna take he will be a saint officially, I believe, next year, but it's Carlos Acutis, and I love that.
Never heard of the guy.
Yeah, you haven't? Yeah. Let me tell you about him. So, no, I love that. I just read recently that saints started appearing to his mom after he died. And St. Francis of Assisi and some other saints I hadn't heard of, but St. Francis of Assisi had like comforted his mom in a dream and said, don't be sad. He is like one of the highest of the high in heaven. And then finally, Carlos himself appeared to his mom and said, like, with so much, she said he had so much joy in his face and was so excited. He said, I'm going to be canonized a saint soon, and there's going to be a whole generation of saints to follow me. And I was like, that gives me so much hope for myself and my family. We're all trying to become saints, and I know that's your guys' motto there. And that gives me so much hope that he said there's going to be a whole generation of saints that come behind me. I'm like, that's awesome. So, okay.
Maria Goretti.
That's
Yeah. Maria Goretti, I think she's beautiful because the gospel the other day was love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. What good is it to love those who love you in return? Do not tax collectors and prostitutes do that same thing. So I think Maria Goretti is an incredible because she's murdered, and then fast forward at her canonization, but her mom and Alessandro are sitting there together at her canonization. It's like, are you kidding me? Like,
that's crazy.
Magnificent. So Maria Goretti, I think she's needed this time because we have people who just hate each other. It's like, no, we're supposed to love the other person even until death.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I would probably take someone who would also help with that loving each other, which would be Mother Teresa. Which I love that. We just talked about moral authority recently and how like she just was someone that it didn't matter what denomination you came from. Even atheists loved her just as a person. And so I think someone like her could really make a difference today. So,
okay.
All right. And then the sixth man, this one's someone maybe like a blessed or a venerable, someone that's not quite a saint yet.
Solanus Casey out of Detroit, Franciscan. Okay. Yeah. He is a holy dude. And Solanus Casey.
Father Porter picked that one as well from Detroit. So made sense. His hometown.
D-town.
All right. Well, I never get to pick this person because the guest always gets to go first, so they get the first pick. And so I would obviously have to take Blessed Stanley Rother. And so one of my favorite things about him is when they said when they found him after he had been martyred, like his sleeves were rolled up and his knuckles were all bloody. And I was like, oh, he didn't go out without a fight. Like he put up a fight for his people, and then I loved it.
He went fisticuffs, literally.
So awesome. Well, you guys comment below which one you guys think the team of saints would change the world. Obviously, there's no wrong answers because any team of saints would be amazing today. Thank you again, Father Kerry, for being on. And
you're welcome.
We'll have you back on soon. I want to do the Acts of the Apostles too. We'll have to do that at some point. So
it's good. It's good.
It's so good. So everybody, don't forget, subscribe, like. We are climbing even closer to. We're just past 300 subscribers recently. It's been less than 3 months, and we're hitting to 400 with the goal. We got to get to 500 though. That's the goal. So we will see you guys next week when we have Tom McIntosh, the soccer coach here at TU. Yeah, you know him, Father Kerry. So we're gonna have him on the podcast talking a little bit about how he keeps his faith with his team here at TU, and looking forward to it. But
talk to him about the Euro. The Euros are going on right now, as well as the Gold Cup in the United States.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we'll have to. Okay, I'll hit you up with some questions I should ask him on it. So
do it.
Awesome. Well, you guys have a great week, and God bless.
God bless you. Peace.